Carter Page, Ph.D. He has been one of the most mystifying figures, I think it's fair to say, in the Trump orbit. And the story of just how it was the government came to be conducting surveillance of him in 2016 has been at the center of the entire Donald Trump, Trump TV, Devin Nunes conspiracy theory that supposedly proves the entire Russia investigation is a hoax. Tonight, that conspiracy theory has blown up in spectacular fashion. In an unprecedented move over the weekend, never happened before, the FBI released a redacted version of the warrant application it used to get a warrant from the secret FISA court, which was required to conduct surveillance on one Carter Page, who is an American citizen. Trump and Devin Nunes, chair of the House Intelligence Committee, have tried to claim that the FBI misled the court in order to get that warrant, a claim that was at the heart of that infamous Nunes memo, which claimed the FBI had political motivations in going after Carter Page. Democrats on the same committee protested. They released a rebuttal memo, you might remember, based on the underlying evidence they had themselves also seen, but which they were not authorized to share. So everyone was arguing about this document we hadn't seen. Now we've seen it. Now we know the truth. As Charlie Savage wrote in the New York Times, in respect after respect, the newly disclosed documents corroborated rebuttals by Democrats on the panel who had seen the top secret materials and accused Republicans of mischaracterizing them to protect the president. National security experts say the documents show the FBI had probable cause to believe that Page had been targeted by the Russian government for recruitment and that he established relationships with Russian government officials, including Russian intelligence officers, and had been collaborating and conspiring with the Russian government. That's in the warrant application. Now, let's be clear. Carter Page has not been charged with a crime. Yesterday, he denied having ever been an agent of a foreign power.
This is so ridiculous. It's just beyond words. You know, it's you're talking about misleading the courts. It's just so misleading going through those 400-plus page documents. You know, where do you even begin? It's literally a complete joke.
Joining me now, the top Democrat in the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Adam Schiff of California. I'm not sure where to start. Maybe we start with this, that the chair of your committee, Devin Nunes, despite the fact that I think independent folks who have read through this, who have followed this story, say this sort of knocks down a lot of his theories. He released this statement: the newly released documents confirm the Intelligence Committee's longstanding argument that unverified information from the Steele dossier formed an essential part of all the FISA applications on Carter Page. It proves the FBI used outright political propaganda to spy an American citizen during the election. What do you say to that?
Well, there were certain fundamental claims that Nunes made in the now discredited memo, which we can see in the FISA application were simply not true. They claimed, first of all, that the investigation began with this FISA warrant. It all goes back to the taint of this FISA, when, of course, the investigation began with Papadopoulos, began with the FBI learning that the Russians had approached one of the campaign foreign policy advisors and told them that they had the stolen emails, that they prepared to release them anonymously, as they would later do. But they also went on to challenge whether the FBI revealed to the court that Christopher Steele, this respected British intelligence officer, former officer, whether his bias had been disclosed to the court, that he had been doing this work on behalf of a law firm retained by the DNC. They claimed that there was no disclosure to the court, when in fact now you can read the application and you can see they did disclose this bias. So in point after point, basically the Nunes memo has been discredited, but that doesn't stop either Nunes or the president from saying otherwise.
Well, I want to just hammer home that point because it's been such a key part of this sort of counter-narrative that's been spun. The idea is that this sort of deep state conspiracy gets the dossier, goes to the court, and doesn't tell them the origin at all. It's a hustle. It's a con. They have this political oppo document. They go to the judge and they say, whoa, we just found this. You should really surveil this guy. Here is what the FISA shows from Charlie Savage's New York Times piece. The application contains a page-length explanation that does alert the court that the person who commissioned Mr. Steele's research was, and I quote here, likely looking for information to discredit Mr. Trump's campaign. That was like the whole thing. That was hours of television programming.
Well, you're absolutely right. And, you know, of course, they embellish it by saying there's no mention of Clinton, there's no mention of the DNC. Well, that's because in FISA applications, you minimize the names of U.S. persons and organizations. So as it appears in the FISA application, it's candidate 1 and candidate 2. But there's no disguising the fact the court was informed,
of course,
of the political bias. And, you know, judge after judge, 4 judges appointed by 3 Republican presidents all found probable cause for the original warrant and the extensions, and that speaks to the support, the evidence supporting those applications.
There's this weird through-the-looking-glass arguments about disclosure through all this, in which you have House Intelligence Committee members from the Republican side sort of kind of, collaborating with the White House to push for certain kinds of disclosure. They want access to certain documents. They want to see stuff at DOJ. There's a concern from DOJ and I think from House Democrats that would compromise the investigation. In this case, my understanding is that you were opposed to release of this document. But I have to say, as a reporter, as someone who's followed FISA for a long time, it seems to be a good thing. Americans have access to this document, and sunshine is a good disinfectant.
Well, look, at this point, after you had the Nunes memo essentially cherry pick information, mislead the public, and we had to issue our corrective memo, then there's little additional damage that's done in issuing a redacted version of the FISA. But we should have never gone down this road to begin with. It was all a bogus, trumped-up effort to validate something Donald Trump said in a tweet, and that is, I was illegally surveilled by the Obama administration in Trump Tower. Now, that is nonsense and has been declared to be nonsense by both the former director of the CIA as well as the director of national intelligence, the director of NSA. But nonetheless, this effort by Nunes and Gowdy and others has been an attempt to try to somehow justify that blatantly false statement by the president.
Your colleague Jerry Nadler was straightforward today. He said Devin Nunes lied. Is Jerry Nadler correct? Did Devin Nunes lie?
Well, yes. I mean, this is a false, patently false, provably false statement, but not just by Nunes. Others signed off on it, too, like Trey Gowdy, and indeed the entire majority signed off on that Nunes memoranda. Now, Nunes hadn't read the FISA, so he signed off on it blindly. But Trey Gowdy had read it. Trey Gowdy knew it was false, these arguments they were making, but nonetheless pushed forward. Now, he sounds a bit different now that he wants to be a judge, but that's no forgiving those misrepresentations and the denigration of the Justice Department, of the intelligence community, all in this misguided effort to defend the president, whatever the cost may be.
All right, Representative Adam Schiff, thanks for being with me tonight.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.